such as leather tanning, chrome plating, petroleum refining, and wood preservation. And irresponsible handling or improper management of waste generated through these activities has increased the concentration of chromium to the level where it has become very harmful for the environment. So there is a need to remediate chromium contaminated soil. And previously, many physical, chemical, and biological techniques have been developed for remediation of metal contaminated soil or restoration of metal contaminated soil, such as immobilization, vitrification, soil washing, flushing, chemical leaching, electrokinetic extraction, etc. But all these techniques have limitations in terms of cost, energy intensive, they are chemical intensive, required human intervention and production of secondary pollutants. So to avoid all these limitations, phytoremediation has turned out to be the best option for remediation of contaminated sites. This method uses the remarkable ability of plants to accumulate or concentrate heavy metals in their tissue and metabolize them. But the most critical step in this process is the identification of suitable native plant, which is hyperaccumulating in nature, non-edible in nature, tolerant, perennial, non-invasive. Previously, many food crops and weeds have been used for phytoremediation purpose, but food crops have the risk of metal entry into the food chain, and weeds have invasive nature. So to avoid these limitations, ornamental metallophytes are considered the potential agents for phytoremediation due to several benefits, such as their shorter life cycle, higher biomass, reduced risk of metal entry into the food chain. They improve the aesthetic values of a particular area or contaminated site. And they improve the landscape for ecotourism in a long run. And it is a safe and sustainable option for restoration of contaminated sites. These are the objective of my study. First objective is to understand the potential of ornamental metallophytes in the phytoremediation process and to identify hyperaccumulators by analyzing ongoing research, and also to review reported ornamental plants with strong tolerance and accumulation capacity for chromium. This figure represents the sources of chromium in soil. There are two types of sources, natural sources and man-made sources. Natural sources are rock weathering, volcanic eruptions, forest fires, and man-made sources are chrome plating, petroleum refining, electroplating, leather tanning, wood preservation, and pigment industries, etc. When the concentration of chromium in soil exceeds the permissible limits, it can have various toxic effects on living organisms. And this table summarizes the toxic effects of chromium on plants and human health. In humans, chromium toxicity can cause ulcers, allergic dermatitis, lung and kidney disease, liver necrosis, brain malfunction, and early death. Chromium is also mutagenic and carcinogenic in humans. It can lead to birth abnormalities and decline in the reproductive health, infection and perforation in the mucous membrane of the nasal septum, edema, irritation of pharynx and larynx, and asthmatic bronchitis. In plants also, chromium toxicity leads to reduced root growth, leaf chlorosis, suppression of seed germination, poor biomass, and it also negatively affects the enzymatic activity of plants. Chromium stress also affects carbon dioxide fixation in plants, electron transport, and photophosphorylation. Previously, many studies showed the potential of ornamental plants in remediation of chromium contaminated soil. And a few examples of such plants have been listed in this table. For example, Rosa cordaceae was able to withstand high doses of chromium toxicity, such as up to 250 mg per kg. And it also exhibited improved growth under chromium stress. In Xenia elegans also, the bioconcentration factor of the plant was observed to be greater than 1, which means that this plant was found to be suitable for phytostabilization purpose of contaminated soil. Similar response was observed in Helianthus anus or accumulation characteristics for chromium also.
We have 2 more minutes.
Okay, ma'am. Few more examples of such plants are Tagetes patula, which accumulated 112.3 mg chromium per kg of plant dry weight, Euphorbia milli, Furcaria gigantea, Polyanthus tuberosa. So it can be concluded from this review that chromium pollution is a potential hazard to the environmental quality and health of exposed organisms. Effective management of chromium contaminated sites is necessary using phytoremediation as an appropriate remediation approach. Ornamental plants are an excellent alternative to other plants for the remediation of chromium contaminated soils, considering their environmental and recreational benefits. Also, ornamental plants offer a reduced risk of bioaccumulation as these plants tend to accumulate pollutants in their non-edible biomass, eventually boosting economic and ecological values. The importance of the work lies to understand the sources of chromium in soil and its toxic effects on the environmental health. It is expected that this work will help future researchers explore the sustainable method for the restoration of metal polluted soil. Also, this study will be beneficial for identifying suitable plant species for the restoration of